Hermes, Herald of the Gods, and also the main persona of Junpei Iori, an important character throughout Persona 3. Now, as I mentioned in part 1, personas are extremely important as a sort of framing device and a visual representation of the idealized version of a character or how a character sees themselves. So, with that in mind, how does Hermes fit within Junpei's idealized idea of himself? How does he represent Junpei on a spiritual level? Now, first and foremost, I think one of the most important aspects linking Hermes to Junpei is Junpei's talkativeness. Junpei as a character, I would argue, is perhaps one of the most happy-go-lucky, talkative characters in the entire cast of Persona 3, easily. In a game where a lot of the characters are extremely serious and brooding and dealing with a lot of their own personal issues, Junpei is kind of like a ray of sunshine. And I feel like that really fits with Hermes' whole vibe of being this very chatty, talkative god. He is considered to be the patron god of orators and interpreters, as well as the patron of just language and rhetoric in general. When the main protagonist first goes to school, Junpei is the very first person in the class to actually approach him and talk to him, on top of the fact of him also being one of the most overtly excited to participate and fight the shadows and to be a hero. Another aspect of Hermes that I think perfectly fits Junpei as a character is Hermes' role as a sort of trickster in most depictions of him. He's often associated with thieves and is known for his cunning. Something that you may not think too much about in terms of his connection with Junpei, but personally I think it fits when you consider Junpei's tendency to wisecrack and also make jokes, as well as just get up to general antics. Two instances that come to mind is his famous Junpei Believe It or Don't skit, where he tells a scary story for the entirety of S.E.E.S, and Operation Babe Hunt, where he ropes Akihiko and the main protagonist into this gigantic pickup artist bonanza. In Greek mythology, many of Hermes' escapades and just hilarious little adventures comes down to things like rescuing other Greek gods or mythological figures at the behest of Zeus, like, for example, freeing Ares from a pot that he was sealed in for a year, or saving Io from a 100-eyed monster. Now, if the name Io sounds familiar, you're not imagining things, because that is the name of Yukari Takeba's persona, which I think is a really cool way of just creating an overlapping connective theme. It's done multiple times in Persona 3, and I'll get into that in another video, but I think this is a great way of showing the connection between Junpei and Yukari, as before the game even really picks up, you do get the sense that the two are familiar with each other and talk to each other a lot. I also think Hermes' many legends associated with him rescuing people feeds into Junpei's desire to be a hero above all else. Particularly early on in Persona 3, he gets very caught up with the idea of wanting to prove himself and wanting to show that he can be a strong, competent leader and somebody who can be the star of the team, which is not that unrealistic when you consider Hermes' role as a god that leads souls to the underworld. Now, I talked before about Orpheus and the main protagonist's symbolism, as far as Orpheus leading his deceased wife from the underworld to the surface, as a sort of metaphor for how the protagonist is able to lead his party through Tartarus and then back to everyday life safely. Now, in the case of Hermes and Junpei, Hermes, you could say, could symbolize Junpei's ability to make his way through the underworld and be a strong, sort of powerful force in leading the party to their destination and goals within Tartarus. I also think this is reflected in Hermes' moveset, as Hermes largely learns physical-based attacks, a method of smashing his way largely through shadows and any enemies that oppose Junpei, and showing his might as a god, compared to, say, Orpheus's more mystical and spiritual magical based attacks. But yeah, I think the use of Hermes as a representative of Junpei Iori from a Persona standpoint is very brilliant and interesting, and I'm glad that they picked this particular god here, because I am a fan of Hermes as a mythological figure. Next time we'll be talking about Io, since I brought up Yukari and her persona, and I think it would only be fitting if I talked about the matching pair, or the first matching pair of personas from Persona 3. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Helps the channel, and thank you for watching. Later.